setting new standards in podcast excellence. You have joined the WBT, fully focused on business and taxes. Here is your host, Michael Lodge.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Michael Lodge. I'm glad that you have joined me. I enjoy this time that you and we sit down and we talk. It's what this podcast is really about. I designed this podcast 3 years ago because I felt as though I needed to teach. And my whole focus is on business, taxes, wealth, politics. Trying to teach people of what happens in real life. And I tell you, over the last few days of 2 weeks, I don't like seeing what's going on. I am at this point where I'm looking at the protesters and what is going on with the protesting every single night and how much destruction it is causing to the very communities that they're going into. And when it comes down to when people are shouting Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean anything anymore. Because of the amount of hurt and pain and destruction it has caused to the individuals who literally live in those communities. We have seen so many people get hurt. We have seen a very orchestrated, very organized Antifa work its way through these demonstrations. And not just Antifa, but other organizations that are just as dangerous as Antifa work its way through these peaceful demonstrations and turn them into a war zone. Poor George, his name is pretty much gone. A few days ago, I was going through TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. And I was watching all these videos of people demonstrating, fighting with the police, spitting at the police, knocking out windows, burning down buildings, attacking other people. And I just wrote 2 words. George who? ? Because all those individuals who were posting those videos of people destroying things, they had nothing to do with George. I talked to an individual, not just one individual, but a couple of individuals who were young kids. And their argument was that in order for them to get anything done, they had to act violent. There were other individuals who were literally saying, these older Americans have failed us. These old people, they don't know what they're doing. They failed us. Let's examine this very carefully. On the day that George was murdered by that really disgusting bad cop, all of us in America, we were in agreement. We were all on the same page. We all had agreed to that this was murder. This was bad. This was evil. This was immoral. This was unethical of what this police officer had done. And the other 3 or 4 officers that were involved. We were all in agreement. We all knew. We all saw. We all heard. And we saw it was murder. And it was a good thing for people who saw evil to get out and demonstrate and protest what evil was all about. But as they were marching and becoming a much larger group, they were infiltrated by Antifa and other hate groups, because they saw this as an opportunity to divide. So this hate was just not in one city or one state. It went out to multiple cities, and with all the same result of destruction. And the majority of their destruction was in the black communities. Black businesses being destroyed and burned. So George's name was forgotten, because then Black Lives took over, then Antifa took over, then all the other fringe groups took over and created chaos and havoc within the very communities that Black Lives Matter was supposed to protect, was supposed to fight for. They were pushed to the side. That's why I said in my vlog over the last 2 days, I stated that Black Lives Matter have not fulfilled their mission statement of standing up for the black community. What they did, they allowed the black community to be attacked by other blacks, by other whites. And poor George was forgotten. You see, what happened with George is that he got mixed up with a bad cop. This isn't about race. This has to do with the fight of good and evil, ethical and unethical, moral and immoral. Listen, we know that there can be change done. Violence does not get you anywhere close to change. Violence just creates more violence. If you've heard the phrase, violence begets violence. Hate creates more hate. Destruction creates more destruction. It never ends well. I was over the last few days, I have not been able to sleep because of what's going on. It has really weighed heavily on my heart and on my mind. Last night I was having a discussion with a friend, and her comments offended me. Now that doesn't mean we can't be friends, but it did offend me. And I'm thinking, if I'm offended by what she has said, and she's probably offended at my response. This whole experience just drives a wedge between people, because that's exactly what these people want. They want to divide. So what do we do? Well, for one thing, we should not be listening to the mainstream media, because they have a desire to divide. They want chaos. They want destruction. That's their whole existence, is to make sure that America is not succeeding. They want people to fight. They want people to steal. They want people to act uncivilized, I should say. Gosh, I hate it when I make up words. But that's what these media individuals want. They want to create a racial divide. That's the whole purpose, because they do not agree that America can be good. Their whole premise is that everything about America is bad. When America, as we have known it, even though we've had some problems, and we try to continue to fix problems, this America has been a good nation. That's why so many individuals try to come to this country. They will even sneak across the border because they see the possibilities that this nation can provide to them. But there are certain Americans in this nation who think everything about this nation is evil. They want that racial fight. They want to see the country economically dead. They want to see American families fighting against other American families. That's not what America wants. Just think of this. We saw a bad cop murder a good man. And we were all in agreement, every single American out there. I did not see any person of this make a dissent against that this was a good thing. Every one of us said, this is bad. Even police officers said, this is bad. Even the President of the United States says, this is bad. This is evil. Oh, my goodness, I tell you. So then we have these Antifa and we have these fringe groups coming in, literally destroying whole communities. Drugstores where people need to go get their daily medication can no longer go because that drugstore has been burnt to the ground or has been looted for everything that's inside it. We saw a police station literally have the police officers run away because that's what politicians up above told them to do. And the station was burnt. It was torched. We see small businesses, mom and pop stores that have been in those neighborhoods for years being completely destroyed within a black community. We can no longer stand here and say that this is a good cause. Black Matters, Black Lives Matter has not fulfilled its responsibility to the black community. They have created greater damage to their own people. And then we see white young kids who have been brainwashed making communities and businesses and individuals suffer because of their rudeness, because of they think that people owe them something now. And I have to consider, what kind of parents do they have? There's that Bible verse that says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, if you want to be treated with respect, you have to treat other people with respect. If you want change, you've got to come to the table and talk about change. But you don't destroy things or burn things down. Destruction creates more destruction. Hate creates more hate. Anarchy is nothing more than to divide and conquer a nation. These are very dangerous and very evil people out there. We can no longer accept evil. Listen, when you want to have change, you have to create change. Violence does not create change. It just creates more violence. People against police, police against people, people against businesses, businesses dying, businesses being burned down. This creates nothing of value for anyone. If you want change, it completely destroys your voice for change because you're destroying other people's lives. That's not change. That's destruction. There's nothing there that's positive. There's not a positive action there that creates positive results. If you really want to make change, you've got to get more involved in your own community. If you see that there's a bad police officer, go to the police department and say, listen, we believe this is a bad person in our community. If you feel that there's more violence going on in your community, identify what's causing it, go to the police department and say, listen, this is what's happening. The biggest thing that I'm offended by in this whole situation is I have not heard the voices of clergy. I've seen some on political news shows making political points, but they offer nothing of value, nothing of ministry to sit down with their parishioners and those individuals who need counseling, need love, need prayer, need the wisdom of common sense to get people to a good place in life. The churches have been shut down. They've been closed by the government. And they have no ability to reach out to their people. Right now, every single church should be open. A church is a place where individuals can go for safety because they know that God lives there. A church is a place where they can go and talk, they can go and pray, they can go and worship with other like-kind believers, they can get counseling when they need counseling, but the churches are locked down because of government action, and this is the most important time when a church should be open. When people are hating, they need to be able to hear the words of love, but the words of love are shut down. by an action of government. If you are a pastor, I am a pastor. Even though I don't practice it every single week, but listen, I am a pastor, an ordained pastor, and I want you to know, I'm speaking to the ministers out there today. Open up your church. There are hurting people out there. There are people who need refuge. There are people who need food. Not just physical food, but spiritual food. And when your doors are shut, you're serving no one except evil. This is the most important time where people should be able to walk into their church, sit down in a pew, and pray. This is a time where church should be open, where they can walk in and talk to a pastor that is sitting there in the church with their arms open, and provide that person the ability to pray or to have prayer done for them. This is a time where communities go to their church and they pray for their community. Where one or more people are gathered together, everything can be done in prayer. The same thing with talking about this hurt and pain. That church should be open. Open your churches. Open your hearts. Start praying. Even if you are at home, start praying for what's going on right now. When I see these individuals walking through the streets, shouting and chanting, they're moving physically, but they're getting nothing done. Because the whole message has been drowned out by destruction. The Black Lives Matter movement, their voices have been drowned out by destruction. This is a time in this country where if we do not unite, we're going to lose the moral fabric and the rule of law in this nation. Because people tend to want to work to rule their nation politically, but not within the rule of law, and we have seen this time and time and time again. This is a time where we need to come together united. Let the police officers do their job. Let them clear the streets. Let's get everybody back home. Let's get everybody back in the churches. Let's get everybody back to their jobs. Let's get everybody that are hurting, let them have somebody to talk to when they're hurting. Let them be able to express it, but yet let's try to resolve some issues at the same time. But when you're marching and you're chanting and you see destruction going on, nothing gets done. It becomes worse. So I have nothing more to say. This has weighed heavily on my mind every single day since this thing has happened. And when I see all the videos on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all that you see no positive messages. You just see destruction day after hour, day after day, hour after hour, moment after moment, everywhere. It's plastered everywhere. We just came out of 3 years of building up an economy. And because of coronavirus and government shutting down businesses and churches and communities, and then now we have Black Lives Matter, we have George that needs to be heard, but he can't be heard because it's being destroyed. His message, his story is being destroyed by hate and destruction. We're not getting anywhere. We can only resolve these issues if you sit down and talk. I've had so many people come to me over the last 3 months because they've been so devastated by they've lost their businesses. By the way, I wanted to say one thing. To those of you who make this statement that says these businesses have insurance, no, they do not. Because listen what happens. Insurance policies say that if there is government action or there is rioting and unrest, they are not covered in their insurance. And a lot of them have lost their insurance because they could no longer afford to pay it. So when you make this selfish, stupid remark that, oh, they've got insurance, they're going to be covered. No, they do not. What you have done by attacking this business, by stealing from it, by burning it down, you have literally destroyed another life. The results of these protests have been disastrous. They have been destructive. They've been immoral. They have been unethical. They have been purely evil. So my friends, I want you to really think about what's going on. If you're participating in violent acts, stop. If you are chanting words that you have no idea why you're chanting them, just because you think it's the right thing to do, think about what you're doing. What is your message? If you don't know, you're wasting your time. If you want to create change, sit down and create change. Work together. Talk to other people. Find out what you can do within your community. Volunteer your time. Work with that student in the public school system that is having trouble with their homework. Tutor them. Donate your time. Volunteer. If people are hungry, work at the soup kitchen. Bring food into them. If you see people hungry on the streets, feed them. If you see people who need spiritual guidance, guide them. Pray for them. If you have a church and your doors are shut, open them. Because this is the time where people need God. Get involved within your community. If you think that there is racial tension between the black community and the police department, sit down with the officers. Sit down and talk. Tell them how you're feeling and let them tell you how they're feeling. Listen. If you don't turn on your ears, you're not going to be able to understand the other side. and where they're coming from. You know, I have seen so many times when I've done mediation that both individuals come in and they want to fight, but when you get down to the nitty-gritty, they're fighting about the exact same thing. Do better by getting involved in your community. That's how you make change. And when one community changes, another community changes, and another, and another, and another, and then it becomes a wave of change that does good, because you want positive change in your heart and in your mind, and you're working at it within your communities. What we have seen over these last 2 weeks is that Black Lives Matter and the fringe groups who have followed them on this protesting march that they have done destruction. And they have not created any change. So I submit to you, get involved in your communities. If you know that there's a black community or a black business that has been devastated or hurt, work at volunteering your time and helping that business clean up. Promote it. Get it back into business. Get it going. If you have stolen from that business, save up your money and pay back that business what you have stolen. If you took a $500 TV, raise $500 and give it back to that business. You owe them. You destroy them. It's time for change. But change only starts if you do something positive for your fellow man, for your fellow woman, for your fellow police officer. It only happens when you reach out. This is Mike Lodge. Listen, if you have any comments or questions, send me an email at 818. I'm not an email, but send me a text at 818-252-5682. Let's build something great today. Let's change our whole attitude and go out there and start helping people instead of destroying people. Let's go out there and begin talking to people instead of hurting them. Listen. Be aware. Understand how other people are hurting or other people are thinking. Listen. Get involved. Create change through involvement. I'll talk with you soon. This is Mike Lodge for the WBT.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content. Listen to us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. We're all out there every single day.